Still, one of the best roasters of the modern age is old Jim Metokur, or Metokur, whatever you want to call him. He made a stream Saturday, which honestly was a masterpiece for multiple reasons. Now, this isn't me sucking up to him in any way, shape, or form. You can go check out a video I made where I gave my opinions. Probably not the popular opinion on Jim, but I will say since then, things have kind of changed a bit, whether or not it's because of his health deteriorating and that playing a factor in this whole thing, including what we're going to talk about in this video, or maybe just me seeing things from a different perspective. But regardless, this isn't coming from a place of being a Metokur fanboy or anything of that sort. When I say that it was a perfect stream, it's because it seemed like Metokur covered all his bases. Of course, that's still going to be lost on a couple people, because it always comes down to seemingly the takeaway, or their takeaway. So I had some people saying that they found it kind of odd, which, I'll be honest, I found it kind of odd too for a second, for the instant that it happened. But upon reflecting on it, the bigger picture in this whole thing, and taking in every hour that happened, along with some of the things he said, Metokur that is, in the first hour, I do think that it was the perfect stream for multiple reasons. Now let's go into why. So at the first hour, Metokur basically goes over why this is essentially all on Nick. How Nick shouldn't deflect responsibility onto other people, while seemingly at the same time roasting the ever-living shit out of him, which is great. It's pretty fair. He didn't really hold back any punches. There was no sweeping. Sometimes it was just merciless, about as merciless as you can get.
Poor Baldo, man. You know, I talked about Nick recently, about 3 or 4 months back. I was on with Andy Worski. In between all of his stuttering, we had talked about the good old days and talked a little bit about Nick, you know, and at the time he had put a video out called Dear John, where he took a massive shit on X-Fan. And I took a very nuanced approach, and I said something then, and I still stay by it, that Nick Rekieta, out of almost all the people I've ever seen online, came the closest to having a professional career. He was at the cusp, the edge. He was at the precipice of taking off from this YouTube shit and doing something spectacular. And the pressure had gotten to him. Something was fucking his life up. That's why he lashed out.
But he made sure to convey the point that Nicky can't be putting this on anybody else. And he made it pretty freaking clear that Nick is, yeah, that's the addict for you. He also went ahead and essentially throughout the entire thing kind of fathered Nick as well, which is not only humiliating, but also freaking hilarious at the same time. Like, if you have another grown man who's on death's door fathering you, another grown man who's on death's door too, but for a separate reason, there's some beautiful meta irony there. It's kind of beautiful, right? Because, I mean, Metokur's dying from just living, essentially, right? One could say he took in all the sins of the internet, or it's his divine karma coming down upon him. While Rick Rekieta, again, easy, cozy life, the only reason he's dying is because of his own self-inflicted wounds. So it's almost kind of beautiful, in a sense, right? But rather humiliating, again, to have a 40-year-old cancer patient just fathering the ever-living shit out of you. It's almost as if Nick never really had a father figure and all he really had was the inheritance from his papa.
Well, we've definitely come to find out exactly what the fuck is going on. Now, if you're unfamiliar with who Nick Rekieta is, you're about to get a hell of an education. Now, maybe you've heard of Nick, maybe you've seen a little bit about him. He's a guy that gained a lot of fame doing a lot of streams around certain trials. At one point, he had 100,000 plus people watching him. Imagine that. Imagine that level of success. You start off as a modest little lawyer from northern Minnesota, reading off legal documents and talking to an audience of maybe a few hundred people. And you parlay that over the years into an audience of 100,000 plus people watching you do court coverage in a unique way. So unique that you have television stations and Netflix documentaries and news articles writing about you. You've got Rumble offering you personalized contracts for big buku bucks. Everything's looking up. Everything is looking great. I mean, there you are. You're a family man. You have the perfect life. You have the ideal life, the life people strive for. A lot of people out there have dreams of what they want. They want fame, success, money. But we also have those modest dreams, those attainable things that are just out of grasp, but if we put enough work into it, we can have it. And that's what Nick Rekieta had.
And nobody really taught him how to be a man. Everything was a LARP up until this point, so we can safely assume that Nick is about as much of a cuck as Jack Murphy, if not more so. I don't know too many men that would let a literal groomer named Drexel hang out with his children, but then again, we found out Nick has a child endangerment charge of sorts. So again, it's not really surprising at this point, right? So then Metokur gave more of the lore. It was a great show overall. I highly recommend anybody that wants to see a definitive dismantling of Rekieta's character to go and find that stream, which it is pretty easy to locate. There are archivers everywhere on the YouTubes. And yeah, give it a watch, get some popcorn, laugh. It was amazing. It was great. It was hilarious. One of the best by far. But it was the ending, right? The message at the end that had some people confused. And it was as if Metokur himself was sympathetic to Nick. Beyond all the shit, he was still holding on hope, holding on to a little string of hope that the lawyer man he met before he got cancer was actually a good person.
He had a family, a wife, loving wife that he was married to for many years. He had multiple children, lived in a beautiful house, had an inheritance, had a degree in a profession that would have provided for him for the rest of his life. And then on top of that idyllic life that most people would strive for, he found numerous successes. It's insane. And he was right on the cusp, right on the edge of taking that and turning that into something that was going to be amazing. And you're about to hear the story of a man that allowed victory to defeat him. You're about to hear the story of a man that allowed his faults and foibles and follies, to his personal vices, to overwhelm him, to overtake him, and to destroy that which he had built up.
And I think that's what it comes down to, hope. At the ending of the day, as my favorite bear would say, Metokur is not a freaking robot. You know, one can say that he's in a mentally fragile state, and I know it's not cool to say that, and it seems pretty gay, which is, you know, it is. But at the end, you know, he is a human being, right? And you gotta understand, this guy is probably in an immense amount of pain, and hope is probably one of the last things he's got himself, given that he's, you know, literally fucking dying. So I think that might play a factor into why he wants to give Nick a little bit, like the last bit of charitability. I find it funny, though, that the Cancer Man was the one that actually gave the best intervention compared to all the other nutjobs in LawTube or any of the network circle that Nick was around. Like, how is the troll cancer patient the one guy that was man enough amongst all of you to actually say, hey Nick, you're a dipshit, or whatever, and put it on full display for everybody? Because apparently there were some tweets out there, one particular by Yellow Flash, where he essentially spills the beans a little bit and says that, oh yeah, we tried to go to him behind the scenes and stuff and he didn't listen, or whatever. So that's some interesting tidbit of information that didn't come out conveniently until Metokur went ahead and made his stream. So again, it's like, you know, it's just interesting timing and an interesting bit of information. I think though, and you people should probably know this more, you should have done this in public because it has more of an impact when it's done in public rather than behind closed doors, especially for YouTube personalities. Another reason why Metokur's approach was great. He essentially roasted the ever-living shit out of him, didn't hold back any real punches, and even from an optics perspective, assuming Metokur was doing this for optics, if not, then whatever, the point still stands, because optically, it was a good move as well.
I'm going to clearly state right now before we get into this, Nick Rekieta is an alcoholic and more than likely a drug addict, and nobody, be it his friends intervening or other people casting stones at him and talking shit, are responsible for that. That is Nick Rekieta's fault. And nobody can fix Nick Rekieta but Nick Rekieta.
You're going to roast the shit out of this person, but you're going to cling on to that little bit of hope to give the perception of empathy for people to say, Metokur is not just dogpiling this guy just like everybody else. Which, to be honest, I wouldn't say that Rekieta's friends or circle is necessarily dogpiling. Hell, there's some nitwits out there that are still trying to enable him to this day by claiming that this is all a cancellation attempt. not calling it what it is, child endangerment. But I don't think that the blame is 100% on the friends or the network buddies. However, that being said, Cancer Man just kind of put everyone in their place, including those people. Because again, he was able to do in one stream what these chuckle fucks were trying to do, allegedly, behind the scenes for what could be years at this point. And I still remember, just to, add a little bit of a contradiction here, no hard feelings. But a lot of the people that are saying that they were talking to him behind the scenes, like, weren't they still cracking drinks open with this guy, like, on stream and shit? So, like, were you really talking to him about his alcoholism, or were you really, or you were just lying right now, or just putting this out there to look good? I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where it's like, I seem to recall over the past few years that Nick was still on streams cracking bottles and acting like a degenerate goofball, and not anybody really batted an eye. Certainly not people like Kumalot, who, again, douchebag that faked his own swatting, had like lustful, weird sexual comments towards Pippa Pipkin or something. I don't know, man. This guy's fucking weird. He's another one of the Nick losers that hung out with him in the mid-age crisis era. But it is what it is. Overall, very good stream. Hope you enjoyed the little highlights I sprinkled in throughout this video. You can catch the entire stream. Again, they should be all over YouTube. Shout out to Elisa Clips for clipping this shit as per usual. She's her girl. Good shit. Go support her as well. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. We're gonna go on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, until we can't no more. Because Nick is our lolcow now, and he should 100% be held accountable for his sins.